The Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, CHRICED, has called on the federal government to respect and protect the rights of the original inhabitants of the Federal Capital Territory. The executive director of the organization, Dr. Ibrahim Zikirullahi, made this known in Abuja at a press briefing marking the United Nations Day of World Indigenous People. Zikirullahi urged stakeholders to continue presenting the challenges of the original inhabitants of Abuja to the government, saying CHRICED will do all it can to attract global attention to their issues.
Every year on August 9th, the International Day draws attention to the various human rights and governance challenges confronting an estimated 476 million indigenous people living in as many as 90 countries around the world. The United Nations General Assembly decided in Resolution 49214 on December 23, 1994, that the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples will be observed every year on August 9. The date commemorates the first meeting of the UN Working Group on Indigenous Populations of the Sub-Commission on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights, which took place in 1982. Figures from the United Nations paint a bleak picture of the lives of these largely marginalized and excluded people around the world. According to the data, indigenous people make up only 5% of the global population, but account for 50% of the poorest people on the planet. When it comes to women, the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and gender-based violence have accentuated the plight of the marginalized. As the world prepares to commemorate this day, it is critical to emphasize that addressing indigenous people's issues is about more than just the bleak aspect of the injustices they have had to endure over time. This special day is also an opportunity to celebrate, reflect, and introspect on what the world is missing by not empowering indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have been marginalized and overawed by other dominant groups over the years, but they bring a lot to the table in terms of knowledge, cultural repositories, and key strategies for environmental and mother earth protection. Observing the day is an excellent opportunity to listen to and learn from indigenous people who have much to teach our world, which is constantly rushing from one global crisis to the other. The point to remember is that while indigenous populations around the world may be in the minority where they live, they have many contributions to make to the advancement of humanity. Whether through age-long practices or knowledge systems that have been passed down through generations. It's no surprise that this year's World Day of Indigenous Peoples commemoration is centered on indigenous women's contributions. The theme is indigenous women's role in the preservation and transmission of traditional knowledge. Since the inception of our project of promoting the rights of the original inhabitants in the Federal Capital Territory, the preservation and promotion of FCT original inhabitants' culture and local knowledge has been a key component of the intervention's goals. As a result, one of the most significant milestones of the project is the revival of hitherto dormant knowledge and cultural production centers of original inhabitants during the project's implementation period. The Oshafa Poetry Center, which was experiencing a lull prior to the start of the project, is of particular interest. The Poetry Center is now a beehive of activity as a direct result of the advocacy and mobilization facilitated by this project. Women have been instrumental in the intergenerational transfer of skills to younger people who are now immersed in their rich and diverse cultural context, which has been critical to the revival process since the start of this project. Cultural productions such as traditional clothing, tie and dye, poetry, and dance have gotten a boost. As a result, many of the FCT original inhabitants' cultural productions will be on display as we build momentum for the day. As you may have noticed, preparation for the day have already begun with a social and traditional media campaign. Original inhabitants, as well as all cohort members advocating for their rights, are raising awareness about their problems. As a cohort of civil society organizations working to promote and protect indigenous people's rights, these activities are not organized as an end in themselves. They all present peaceful, lawful, and effective options for urging government stakeholders to support justice, fairness, and inclusion.